The racial passes in ESO grant massive bonuses, so race choice is a significant one. The races are unfortunately not balanced at all, so the choice will greatly impact your difficulty. Technically, you can complete even the hardest content using the worst race, but you'll have to adjust your build to have more survivability, which means providing less support for your group. In this video, I'll organize all races into tiers and briefly talk about each of them. I will be judging only the traditional tanking role, where you're expected to survive while keeping up debuffs. I will ignore the impact weapon damage or critical damage bonuses have on your DPS, though I will consider the impact weapon/spell damage have on healing, because Dragon Knight's main self-heal, Coagulating Blood, and Vigor scale with that. It also increases the effect of Engulfing Flames, which lets you support your group better. I will also mention it when a certain race is also good at another role, if you want to create a character that fulfills multiple roles, but it won't impact placement on the tier list. When calculating recovery, I will always assume you have both minor and major endurance and intellect buffs. If you've been watching my previous guides, then you already know that the best race for tanking by far are Nords, and this balance between them and other races is so massive I'm gonna leave an empty tier below them to emphasize it. They get 1000 max health, 1500 max stamina, 5 ultimate every 10 seconds, 2600 armor, and 4620 frost resistance. The main reason Nords are so overpowered is the bonus armor. It allows you to have so much more freedom with builds, where other races will have to sacrifice sustain and use, for example, the Lady Mundus just to catch up to Nord's armor. Armor has increasing returns, so on a tank it's very likely you get the best value out of it. In the perfect scenario where you've had 30,400 armor without the ragged racial, adding that 2600 armor will grant you additional 7.28% damage mitigation. Then on top of that we have additional max health, additional max stamina, and specifically lack of additional max magicka. Which is good because as a tank, you want to keep your max stamina higher than max magicka, so that it's your dominant resource, so that orb synergy restores your stamina. With that additional 1500, your stamina will stay as your dominant resource even while wearing, for example, Encratis, which grants additional 1096 max magicka. So you don't have to put any attributes into stamina or change enchants from Tristat. The bonus ultimate generation is great for supporting the group, and it synergizes with sets like Saxsteel, War Machine, and Pillager's Prophet. It will also recover your resources if you're a Dragon Knight. It will translate into 25 resources per second. The frost resistance is a nice bonus since two hardest trial bosses in the game, Basse and Teleria, deal mostly frost damage. Much further below, but nonetheless second best, are Imperials. Their ratios grant them 2000 max health, 2000 max stamina, and 6% reduced cost of all abilities. The additional max health is great. Additional stamina, just like with Nords, makes it so you don't have to put points into stamina even while wearing a set that provides bonus max magicka. The percentage cost reduction unfortunately applies after the flat cost reduction from jewelry enchants, so it's much less effective. But it also applies to ultimates. In the end, it's a bit less effective than the Nord ultimate generation, and it doesn't boost ultimate based item sets the way Nord Ultigen does. Redguards land in B tier. The ratios grant them 8% cost reduction on weapon abilities, 2000 max stamina, 1005 stamina every 5 seconds, which translates into 200 stamina per second that works through block, and 15% reduced effect of snares. The cost reduction is nice but not significant. It won't save you much stamina because Pierce armor is already very cheap, and it won't reduce any ultimate cost because there are no good weapon ultimates for a tank. But it can be useful for Destro staff skills, such as Destructive Clench, Pulsar, or Elemental Blockade. The additional max stamina once again allows you to use an item set with bonus max magicka without investing any attribute points into stamina. The Adrenaline Rush should be proccing on cooldown if you're playing correctly and allows you to regenerate a decent amount of stamina while blocking, which is very good for new players who haven't yet gotten rid of the bad habit of perma-blocking. Bretons land in B tier, but it's very situational, which I'll explain in a moment. Their ratios grant them 2000 max magicka, 2310 spell resistance doubled with status effect, 130 magicka recovery, which translates to 94 magicka per second, and 7% reduced magicka cost. Their biggest downside is the additional max magicka, which means you'll have to remove some health attribute points and add some stamina ones. But this is a situational issue. It's gonna be a massive problem if you have to wear Encratis, which gives you even more max magicka. But if you have to wear, for example, Tremor Scale, which grants max stamina, then you should only have to sacrifice a smaller amount of max health. Spell resistance is also very situational. If you're, for example, main tanking Smadja, which deals only magic damage, then in that situation you can consider Bretons equals to Imperials in A tier. But most of encounters in ESO have at least some physical damage. The additional magicka recovery and reduced cost of magicka skills will greatly improve your sustain, especially on classes like Dragon Knight or Sorcerer, which can turn magicka into stamina. Bretons are also the best race for healing, so that's worth noting if you wanna use a single character for tanking and healing. Wood Elves land in C tier. Their racials grant them 5% movement speed, 258 stamina recovery, which translates into 187 stamina per second, 2000 max stamina, and 2310 poison and disease resistance. Wood Elves can be good, but I wouldn't recommend them to new players. The stamina recovery can give similar results to Redguard's Adrenaline Rush, but only if you're very good with blocking, because holding block will stop your stamina recovery. The movement speed bonus is very good, but situational. There will be encounters where it's completely useless and encounters where it's extremely useful. Max stamina allows you to put all your attributes into health, even with item sets that grant max magicka. Poison and disease damage types are rare, so this passive will be useless in most fights. Khajiits land in D tier. Their racials grant them 90 of all recoveries, which translate to 65 of all resources per second, 915 of all maximum resources, and 12% critical damage and healing. Khajiits are just average overall. The additional maximum resources and recoveries are decent. Tanks usually have around 10% crit chance, so that 12% increased critical healing can be translated to 1.2% increased healing overall. Khajiits are the best damage dealers in unoptimized groups and solo content, so that's worth noting if you wanna use a single character for multiple roles. Argonians also land in D tier. Their racials grant them 1000 of all maximum resources, 6% healing done, 3125 resources every 45 seconds, which translates to 70 resources per second, and 2310 poison and disease resistance. Argonians are very similar to Khajiits, except they aren't good at other roles like Khajiits are. They get bonus 1000 maximum of all resources, which is 85 more than Khajiits. They get 6% healing done, which is better than Khajiits' 12% critical healing and damage, and their passive translates into 70 resources per second, which on paper is slightly better than Khajiits' recovery, but a burst of 3000 of resources, combined with resources restored by the potion, will most of the times go over the cap. Poison and disease damage types are rare, so this puzzle will be useless in most fights. Orcs also land in D tier. Their racials grant them 1000 max health, 1000 max stamina, 2125 health every 4 seconds, which translates to 531 health per second, 258 weapon and spell damage, 12% sprint speed and 10% reduced sprint cost. Max health is nice. Max stamina will allow you to put more attribute points into health when wearing item sets with bonus magicka. Unflinching rage will give you around 531 HP per second, which is decent. The additional sprint speed will be very useful in some encounters. Weapon and spell damage are useful mostly for a Dragon Knight, so if you're a Dragon Knight you can consider Orc to be one tier higher. Dark Elves land in E tier. Their racials grant them 1910 max stamina and magicka, 258 weapon and spell damage, and 4620 flame resistance. Dark Elves get a lot of maximum resources and a lot of flame resistance, which is probably the most prevalent type of damage, but they get no health and no additional sustain, which places them at the lowest tier. Once again, weapon and spell damage are useful mostly for a Dragon Knight, so if you're a Dragon Knight you can consider Dark Elves to be one tier higher. Dark Elves are also the best damage dealers in optimized groups, so that's worth noting if you wanna use a single character for multiple roles. High Elves also land in E tier. Their racials grant them 2000 max magicka, 258 weapon and spell damage, 625 magicka every 6 seconds, which translates to 104 magicka per second, and 5% damage reduction while channeling. High Elves are definitely the worst race for tanking. You will be forced to put attribute points into stamina, which will reduce your max health. Getting 104 magicka per second is nice, but not enough to offset that big flow mentioned before. Taking reduced damage while channeling is mostly useless, since you shouldn't be using channel abilities while taking heavy damage. Once again, weapon and spell damage are useful mostly for a Dragon Knight, so if you're a Dragon Knight you can consider High Elves to be one tier higher. High Elves are also the best damage dealers in optimized groups, so that's worth noting if you want to use a single character for multiple roles. That's it for this video. I hope that made your choice easier. Thanks for watching and see you next time.